Before discussing about this cell injury and cell adaptations, let us discuss basic structure of living organism, that is cell. Cell is a structural and functional unit of living organism, and if there is any alterations in the structure and function, if there is any alterations in the structure and function and morphological structures, then it results in condition called disease. Once again, if there is any alterations in the structure and functions morphologically, then it results in disease, and this diseased condition in cell first observed by Rudolf Virchow. Rudolf Virchow was the first scientist to observe the diseased condition in the cell. So this Rudolf Virchow is also called father of modern pathophysiology. Rudolf Virchow is also called father of modern pathophysiology. What is pathophysiology? Pathophysiology is a study of science which deals with the study of disease and diseased conditions in our body and its treatment and prophylaxis. And these are some basics of cell and disease. What is disease and who discovered this disease means Rudolf Virchow is the first scientist to discover the disease in a cell. So he is called as father of modern pathophysiology. Now let us discuss some key points regarding this cell. That is, first one, hemostasis. What is hemostasis? Hemostasis is a property of maintaining the internal condition of a body. Internal condition of body in a particular manner. Hemostasis is a property of maintaining the internal condition of a body in specified manner, and there are three important domains of homeostasis. First one, sensors or receptors. This is the first domain, that is sensors and receptors, and second domain is controlling system. Controlling system is the second domain, and the last domain, that is third domain, is called effectors. These are the three important domains of hemostasis, that is sensors or receptors, controlling system and effectors. Now what is the function of these receptors means it will helpful in intake and outtake of signals. Intake and outtake of signals from inside of the cell to outside and from outside of the cell to inner side, that is receptors, through the receptors. And controlling system, this controlling system will help in taking the input signal and will compare the alterations. Compare the alterations. Now what is the function of effector means it will intake the signal and results in alterations. Result in alteration. So these are the three domains, that is receptors, controlling system and effectors, and these are the functions of hemostasis domains. And what are the important structures which are involved in hemostasis are, there are three structures which are importantly involved in the hemostasis. That is, first one, platelets, and second one, coagulating factors, coagulation factors, and last one, endothelium. So these are the three important structures which are involved in hemostasis, that is platelets, coagulation factors and endothelium. And now let us discuss a case with these platelets, coagulation factors and endothelium which is involved in hemostasis. So let us discuss. This is one of the blood vessel in which these are the endothelial cells. These red color structures are the endothelial cells, and if there is any rupture in the endothelial layer, if there is rupture, and this is a rupture in the endothelial layer of blood vessels, and this hemostasis is divided into four phases. First phase is ventricular contraction or ventriculo-vasoconstriction. This first one, atrial vasoconstriction. Atrial vasoconstriction is the first phase in which the size of this blood vessel will get decreased. It results in vasoconstriction. So the size will get decreased. This is the first step, and the second step is called primary hemostasis. What is primary hemostasis? Now let us discuss how this primary hemostasis is formed. Now let us consider this is a blood vessel in which these are the endothelial cells. It is a blood vessel, arteries, blood vessel, that is arteries, and these are the endothelial cells, and there are platelets, these are blue color structures are the platelets. And in primary hemostasis, the first function is the platelets will get activated, and these platelets will contain a special receptor, that is if you draw only one platelet, this is one platelet, and at first the platelets will get activated, and secondly the structure of these platelets will get converted into another form, that is like this. It will get converted to C. Arechin's form. it becomes shapeless, and whenever in primary hemostasis there is a receptor that is on the surface of this platelets, it consists of glycoproteins. So this is a receptor, this is a special receptor of platelets that is called glycoprotein 1b receptor. Glycoprotein 1b receptor. Glycoprotein 1b receptor is present on the surface of platelets and on subendothelial layer. These are the endothelial cells in which it consists of subendothelial cells, and on subendothelial layer it consists of a special receptor This is a special receptor which is present on subendothelial layer is called VWF factor. VWF receptor. This is glycoprotein 1b receptor of platelets, and VWF factor or VWF receptor which is present on subendothelial layer, and this glycoprotein 1b protein will get attached to this VWF factor and will get attached to the surface of subendothelium, where damage is rupture to this endothelial layer is taking place. Now this is attachment of platelets with the endothelial layer, and this is glycoprotein 1b, and there is one more protein. Let us consider this is another platelet in which it consists of special type of receptor, that is glycoprotein 2b and 3a receptors. That is glycoprotein 2b or glycoprotein 3a. It is present on another type of platelets, through which this, with the help of this glycoprotein 2b, will get attached to this platelets which is attached to these platelets, and here with the help of this GP to glycoprotein 2b and 3a, several platelets will get attached here. More number of platelets will get attached here. This structure is called, this phase is called platelet adhesion, and this is called primary hemostasis. And this on the surface of how, one point here, how these many number of platelets are attached to this one platelet means, on surface of platelets it consists of phospholipids. This black color structure is a phospholipids which are present on surface of platelets, and these phospholipids will release a special factor. Now that special factor will get attached with the, will attract the calcium ions, and whenever these calcium ions are attracted, more number of platelets will get attached to this surface of RBC. This phase is called platelet adhesion, and it is also called primary hemostasis. And third stage is secondary hemostasis. What is secondary hemostasis means? As we discussed that more number of platelets are attached to the surface of one platelet, and there is a special structure, that is phospholipids, which is present on surface of these platelets, and these phospholipids will release a special factor, and this special factor will get banded with the calcium ions, and these calcium ions will get attached to the clotting factor number 7. It will bind with the clotting factor number 7. Ultimately, when clotting factor number 7 is binded with these calcium ions, now it results in formation of conversion of fibrinogen into fibrin. Fibrinogen will get converted into fibrin. Whenever this coagulating factor 7 is attached with calcium ions, there will be releasing of prothrombin. Now this prothrombin will convert this fibrinogen into fibrin, and whenever this fibrin is formed, it will get attached on the surface of this platelet plug. This black color structure is a sheet of fibrin. This black color structure is the sheet of fibrin. Whenever this fibrin is accumulated on the surface of platelets, it is called secondary hemostasis, and this is secondary hemostasis. And last one is clot stabilization. What is clot stabilization? Whenever this clot is formed, it results in repairing of this damage of endothelial layer, and this clot which is formed will be stable at this position only with the help of special types of enzymes in endothelial layer. Endothelial enzymes. With the help of endothelial enzymes, the clot which is formed will be stable at one place and ultimately results in repairing of this blood vessel and maintaining the blood volume condition, which results in hemostasis. And as we discussed that there are several receptors which are present on the platelets, and along with GP 1B and 2B there is one more receptor that is called von Wille receptors. Von Wille receptors are present on surface of platelets. When there is decrease in von Wille receptors, it results in von Willebrand syndrome. It results in von Willebrand syndrome, and this is glycoprotein 1B receptor. If there is a decrease in this glycoprotein 1B receptor, it results in syndrome called Bernard-Soulier syndrome. Whenever if there is any deficiency in glycoprotein 1B receptor, it results in Bernard-Soulier syndrome, and if there is any decrease in glycoprotein 2B receptor, it results in Glanzmann thrombus syndrome. These are the disorders which are related with this hemostatic receptors, that is van Wille receptors will result in van Willebrand syndrome, and glycoprotein 1B receptor will result in Bernard-Soulier syndrome, and glycoprotein 2B receptors will result in Glanzmann thrombus syndrome. And this is about hemostasis. And let us discuss one mechanism, that is feedback mechanism. What is feedback mechanism? the process of maintaining the internal conditions of a body with respect to the external stress or external stimuli. The process of maintaining the internal conditions of a body with respect to the external stress or external stimuli is called feedback mechanism. Now this feedback mechanism will be of two types. One is positive feedback mechanism and negative feedback mechanism. What is positive feedback mechanism and negative feedback mechanism? Now let us discuss with one example, that is tachycardia and bradycardia. That one is bradycardia. These are the two conditions which are related with the abnormalities in the heart. And what is the function of this positive feedback mechanism and negative feedback mechanism is, if a person is suffering from tachycardia, then feedback mechanism will come into picture and will decrease the heartbeat. Is called negative feedback mechanism. And if any person who is suffering from bradycardia, in which the heart rate will get decreased, then the positive feedback mechanism will come into picture and will increase the heart rate. And with the same another example, that is hypertension, and other one is hypotension. Now if a person who is suffering from hypertension, then he will be exposed to the negative feedback mechanism and will decrease that hypertension. It will decrease the blood pressure. That is function of negative feedback mechanism. And person who is suffering from hypotension, in which positive feedback mechanism is allowed, then ultimately blood pressure will be increased. This is about feedback mechanism, that is directly by both positive feedback mechanism and next one, that is negative feedback mechanism. Now let us discuss about cellular adaptations. What is cellular adaptation? Whenever a normally functioning cell undergoes a stressful condition, will result in adaptations. Normal cell will undergo stressful condition, will result in adaptations. This normal cell will undergo stressful condition, then it results in adaptations. Now these adaptations may be physical or chemical. Now what are the parameters which results in adaptations? The first parameter is increase in stress. This is the first parameter which results in adaptations. And second parameter is decrease in stress. Increase in stress and decrease in stress. Increase in stress and decrease in stress. And the last parameter is change in stress. These three parameters which results in cellular adaptation, that is first one, increase in stress and decrease in stress and change in stress. These are the three important parameters which results in adaptations. Now whenever if there is increase in stress, it results in hypertrophy. Now what is hypertrophy? increase in the size of a cell is called hypertrophy. Increase in the size of a cell. Increase in the size of a cell is called hypertrophy. And second condition is hyperplasia. What is difference between hypertrophy and hyperplasia means? Hypertrophy is increase in size of a cell, whereas hyperplasia is increase in number of cells. There will be increase in the number of cells is called hyperplasia, whereas hypertrophy means increase in size of cell. Hyperplasia is increase in number of cell. This is with respect to the increase in stress, that is first parameter, and second parameter is decrease in stress, that is if there is decrease in stress, it results in atrophy. What is atrophy? Atrophy means decrease in size of cell. The size of the cell will get decreased, or it is also called hypertrophy. It is also called hypertrophy, and this is with respect to the decrease in stress. And last one is change in stress. Now this change in stress includes metaplasia, What is metaplasia? Metaplasia is a condition in which one form of the cell will get converted into another form of cell. One form to other form. Example, simple squamous epithelium will get converted into cuboidal epithelium. Is example of metaplasia, and another one is dysplasia. What is dysplasia? Dysplasia is a condition in which normal cell will get converted into abnormal cell. This is cellular adaptations, that is increase in stress, decrease in stress and change in stress will result in cellular adaptations, that is hypertrophy, hyperplasia, atrophy, metaplasia and dysplasia. Now let us discuss about cellular injury. What is cell injury? Whenever, let us consider a adapted cell. Whenever in adapted cell, the stress is increased, increase in stress will result in cell injury. And a classical definition of this cellular injury is, cell injury is a condition which is arised because of high stressful condition in an adapted cell, where the adapted cell will be failed to become a normal cell. Once again, cell injury is a condition which is arised because of high stress condition in a adapted cell, where the adapted cell fails to become a normal cell, is called cell injury. Now this cell injury will be of two types. One is reversible cell injury and other one is irreversible. One is reversible cell injury and other one is irreversible cell injury. What is reversible cell injury? Now let us consider this is the normal cell. if it is undergone any stressful conditions, it results in adaptations. Then if this adapted cell undergoes more stressful conditions, stress is increased, then it results in cell injury. Now this injured cell in which the stress is decreased will get converted into normal cell. If there is decrease in the stress, then this injured cell will get converted into normal cell, is called reversible cell injury. This is called reversible cell injury. And the another condition, that is irreversible cell injury. What is irreversible cell injury means? Irreversible cell injury is a cell injury in which whenever stress is decreased, this injured cell cannot convert into normal cell. Ultimately it results in death of cell. It results in cell death. Now that cell death can be occurred with two types. One is necrosis and other one is apoptosis. One is necrosis and other one is apoptosis. This reversible cell injury can convert into normal cell, but this irreversible cell injury cannot convert into normal cell, which results in cell death. That cell death will occur with these two pathways, that is necrosis and other one is apoptosis. Now this necrosis is completely pathological. It is completely pathological, and this apoptosis is physiological and pathological. It may be physiological or it may be pathological, but this necrosis is purely pathological condition. And if we discuss about necrosis and apoptosis, what is necrosis? Necrosis is the series of morphological changes which takes place in lethally injured cell. Series of morphological changes which occurs in lethally injured cell. What is lethally injured cell? Lethally injured cell is a cell in which it is irreversibly damaged cell. Lethally injured cell is nothing but irreversibly damaged cell. Now what is necrosis? Necrosis is a series of morphological changes in which occurs in the lethally injured cell or irreversibly damaged cell is called necrosis. Series of morphological changes in which is occurred in lethally injured cell is called necrosis. Now let us consider this is a cell, a healthy cell. Now this healthy cell will undergo certain morphological changes and will get converted or will get death. Now it undergoes certain morphological changes in which this healthy cell will get converted into death cell. Now this series of steps is called necrosis. Now if there is any impairment in the function, let us consider glucose. Glucose will undergo glycolysis process, will form pyruvic acid. Now this pyruvic acid will get enter into the TCA cycle will undergoes TCA cycle by carbon dioxide, by taking the carbon dioxide, by releasing carbon dioxide, and this pyruvic acid will enter into TCA cycle and will liberate carbon dioxide, and this is normal function. But if there is any abnormalities in this pyruvic acid, and if this pyruvic acid cannot enter into this TCA cycle, and it results in lactic acid, there will be accumulation of lactic acid in the muscles. Now whenever this lactic acid is accumulated in the muscles, now there will be increase in acidic condition. There will be increase in the acidic conditions of body, and whenever this acidic conditions is released, then under it normal cells will undergo death, which is called necrosis. How does this necrosis occurs means, whenever the acidic conditions is increased in a cell, ultimately the proteins will get denatured. The proteins will get denatured and results in death of a cell. Now, what are the conditions which results in necrosis is, first condition, that is protein intracellular protein denaturation. Intracellular protein denaturation is the first cause of necrosis, and second cause is, let us consider, there are several enzymes which are present in each cell of our body. Now these enzymes which are present in each cell will get digested. Ultimately there will be no production of proteins, and if there is no production of proteins, ultimately there will be no energy which is produced in the cell, ultimately results in death of cell. That is second one, enzymatic digestion. This enzymatic digestion is again classified into two forms. That is, if let us consider there is a lysosomes. These lysosomes are present in the cell, and because of some stressful conditions in the cell, these lysosomes will get busted. These lysosomes will be busted, and this the contents which are present in lysosome will get busted to the outside of the cell, ultimately results in death of the cell. That is, if there is necrosis which occurs because of enzymatic digestion which takes place because of the enzymes of its own cells, is called autolysis. Which is autolysis. Autolysis is a enzymatic digestion of enzymes of its own cells, that is autolysis. Now another form is called, now if there is, these are the lysozymes. Let us consider there is one more microbe which is coming from outside. This is a microbe which is coming outside, which is coming from outside, or this is a pathogen which is coming from outside. Now this pathogen will be entered at the inner side of the cell, will ultimately damage the cell, and results in, whenever this microbe which is coming from outside will get entered into the normal cell, and it consists of enzymes. Now the enzymes from the external pathogen will get busted in the normal cell, ultimately results in death of cell. That is called heterolysis. Heterolysis is an enzymatic digestion which takes place because of the enzymes of external pathogen which is not from our own cell. That is called heterolysis. That is, one is autolysis and other one is heterolysis. This is about necrosis, and other one is apoptosis. Now next type is apoptosis. In apoptosis, the P will be silent. It is called apoptosis, and it is one of the type of cell death, one process of cell death. And if we discuss about some morphological changes which takes place in apoptosis, is first one, cell shrinkage. Cell shrinkage will be the first morphological change in the apoptosis, and second one is chromatin condensation. The chromatin will get condensed at the inner side of this, at the inner side of the nucleus, that is chromatin condensation, and this is second morphological changes which takes place in apoptosis. And the last morphological change is fragmentation. That is, first morphological change is cell shrinkage, and second one is chromatin condensation, and third one is fragmentation, and fourth one is nuclear content. Nuclear content of fragmented bodies. Nuclear content of the fragmented bodies is called, these are the four morphological changes of apoptosis, that is cell shrinkage, chromatin condensation, fragmentation, and nuclear condensation. Let us consider this is a healthy cell, and first one, that is undergoes cell shrinkage. Now this is first morphological change, that is cell shrinkage, and chromatin condensation. What is chromatin condensation? Let us consider this is a nucleus. Inside it consists of chromatin material. Now this chromatin material will get condensed at the layer which is present next to this nucleus. This is chromatin condensation, and next one is fragmentation. Now let us consider this is one cell. Now this fragmentation means one cell can be divided into several fragments. This is fragmentation, that is apoptosis, which results in death of cell. And fourth one, that is nuclear content of fragmented bodies. Now these are the fragmented bodies, in which some of the fragmented bodies consist of nucleus from the parent cell. Let us consider these are the fragment bodies, and it consists of nucleus from the parent cell, and some of them do not contain nuclear material from the parent cell. This is one morphological change of apoptosis, which all this ultimately results in death of a cell. And if we discuss about the pathways of apoptosis, there are two pathways which are related to this, apoptosis. That is, first one is extrinsic pathway, and other one is intrinsic pathway. One is extrinsic pathway and other one is intrinsic pathway. This extrinsic pathway is also called death pathway. And this intrinsic pathway is also called mitochondrial pathway. Now, if we discuss about the extrinsic pathway, let us consider this is a membrane in which this is a cell membrane. It consists of lipids in it. And these are the lipids, and there are two special proteins which are associated with the extrinsic pathway, that is tumor necrotic factor and other one is Fas protein. There are two proteins which are, or two receptors which are associated with extrinsic pathway, that is tumor necrotic factor and other one is Fas protein. Now let us discuss this extrinsic pathway with this Fas protein. Now this is the receptors of Fas proteins. These are receptors of Fas proteins, and there is a ligand of Fas protein which is called Fas ligand. This Fas ligand will get attached to the receptors of Fas proteins. Now with these receptors, it will be entered into the inner side of this membrane and it forms domains. Now these domains are called FADD, Fas death domains. FA means Fas, DD means death domains. FADD domains, and they are also called death domains. Now these are present at the inner side of this, that is cytoplasm. Now these FADD will activate the procaspase. Now this procaspase will activate the caspase. Whenever this caspase is activated, will result in apoptosis. This is one pathway, that is extrinsic pathway, which is also called death pathway, and other one is mitochondrial pathway, that is intrinsic pathway. And let us consider this is a mitochondria, and this is the inner layer of mitochondria, and on surface of mitochondria there is a growth protein. This is a growth protein. Now this growth protein will undergo certain morphological changes, will result in formation of special structures. These special structures will prevent the leakage of mitochondrial content into the external side of this mitochondria, that is into the cytoplasm. But in this extrinsic pathway, let us consider this is a mitochondria, and in extrinsic pathway there is no growth factor which is present here, but here there is no growth factor, and ultimately there will be no production of these special receptors, and ultimately there will be increase in the permeability of membrane of mitochondria, and the content of this mitochondria will get released out into the cytoplasm, that is cytochromes. Whenever these cytochromes are released from this mitochondria into the cytoplasm, ultimately will result in the death of the cell, that is apoptosis. And this is intrinsic pathway, which is also called mitochondrial pathway. This is extrinsic pathway, which is also called death pathway. This is about cell injury, that is necrosis and apoptosis. And if we discuss about the causes of cell injury, there are several causes of cell injury. The first cause is ATP depletion. Whenever the ATP will get decreased in our cell, it results in three conditions. That is, first one, it undergoes anaerobic respiration, undergoes anaerobic glycolysis, and second one, there will be decrease in the sodium concentration. Sodium concentration will be decreased. And third one is detachment of ribosomes. There will be detachment of ribosomes. Whenever ATP depletion is arised, it results in anaerobic glycolysis and decrease of sodium ions concentration and detachment of ribosomes. These three will result in cell injury, and this is the first cause. And second cause is the calcium percentage will be decreased. Whenever this calcium concentration is decreased, ultimately will result in ATP depletion. Whenever this ATP depletion will arise, it results in these three conditions, will results in cell death. And third one is membrane breakage. Whenever the membrane will be broken, ultimately let us consider this is the membrane, and this membrane is broken, then the permeability of this membrane will be increased. Ultimately the contents of this inner side of this membrane will be expelled out, and ultimately results in cell injury. And this is one condition. And next one is reactive oxygen species. Reactive oxygen species. This is fourth condition, which results in cell injury. And other one is ATP depletion and calcium concentration will decrease, and membrane breakage and reactive oxygen species. And these are some causes of cell injury, which results in reversible cell injury and irreversible cell injury.